Let's take a look at the really fun cartoon effect that we can use to turn our footage into more of a cartoon. Now, I'd like you to follow along with me by opening up the footage called Farm Fresh in a folder appropriately named Farm Fresh that you'll find inside of the Workfiles folder. And once you have that footage loaded, what we're going to do is we're going to do a search under our effects and presets by simply typing the word cartoon or a few letters until it shows up. So all I have to do is type the word cart, and now we have the effect ready to go. To apply it, all we have to do is literally click on the effect and drag it on top of our footage. Right away, you can see a change in the way it looks. We see a thick ink line and a fill color based on the averaging of the colors inside of the footage. So what happens here is, based on the parameters that we change, we're telling After Effects to blur the colors that are inside the footage to create averages. For example, let's say we have a bright red pixel and we have a bright orange pixel. So it's going to take those two pixels and give us the average in between those. So we can dictate how much that happens or how little that happens. Likewise, we can also change the line thickness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where it says render, and I can tell After Effects that I only want the fill color. So get rid of the line. This gives me a nice painterly feeling. Likewise, if I'd like to get that back, I can put it back on fill and edges. I can also get rid of the color and just render the edges. Really cool, almost like a woodcut. Now don't forget, you can combine many of these filters. So you can put a solid in here, you can change the blend mode, and you can really change how this looks if you do choose to go with the edges only. I'll put this back on fill and edges. Now let's talk about the detail radius. And by the way, most of these guys will have a slider here. So if you don't want to slide the hot text, you can do it with the slider down here. Now, the detail radius simply determines the radius of the blur. That tells After Effects how many of the pixels it's going to average. So we can, for example, slide all the way to the left, or we could slide all the way to the right and change how many pixels it's going to blur. Now, this works in conjunction, of course, with the threshold. And this threshold will give us a bilateral blur. And this blur is going to either decrease or increase an area where an edge is very prominent. So it will look at where there's an edge and determine how much of a blur to apply. So I'm going to go ahead and bump the radius way up. And you'll notice that because we have a sharp line here, it doesn't blur that much. But look down here. There's no real defining edge, so it blurs this quite a bit. But it retains a nice definition where there is a defining line. So depending on how much detail you want, or what kind of effect you're going for, you will change these parameters in conjunction with one another. So you just play with those and try to get the look you want. We can also change the shading steps for our fill. So we can either reduce that greatly or increase it greatly to add more of a blur, as you see here. And we can change the smoothness. This will determine the amount of colors we have in our blur. So we have a more posterized or comic book look by changing this all the way to the left, and we blur it to the right. We also have some options with our edge. So we can change the threshold and really grow that edge. We can increase the width of that edge, the softness, and the opacity. So you can imagine the amount of looks you can apply to your footage, from a very harsh comic book style where you just have very minimal colors and a posterized effect, to something that looks like a painting by really blurring and averaging out these pixels and maybe not even having an edge to appear on your cartoon effect on your artwork. So that is once again a look at the cartoon effect. If you want to go even further, you can play around with your edge enhancement, and that really just sharpens things up a little bit. The black level for the edge, and the contrast. Right, so that is once again the cartoon effect that you can find by simply typing cartoon or as close as you can get for the effect to appear and just drag it on your footage.